Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Rett U chat tonight. Susan,
and we would love to see all your faces if you don't mind, unless you're worried that you don't look good or something. Mari, sorry, we need to see your face. What's the matter with you?
Oh, Mari, she called you out.
I didn't call you out.
Hi, Ashley.
Hi. Oh, hi,
nice
Ashley.
to meet you. All right. So
nice to see some of you and hear the rest of you.
Yes. I am Courtney Barnum. I'm a Rett U coach and training coordinator, and Miss Susan is our co-founder and coach and woman extraordinaire and the person I want to be when I grow up. Hello, beautiful. Oh my goodness.
Gorgeous. Are you going to learn something tonight? Yes, of course. You're taking it all in. So, Courtney, you want to start us off?
Sure. What we're talking about is what is our primary goal, and we are going to be taping this. We are recording this, and it will be posted as well.
Are you recording it?
Yes, I am, ma'am.
All right.
And we also have a quick handout that I will post in the event so that you have available to it. But hi, Mari. David Yoder says no student is too anything to be able to read and write. And that is always going to be our primary focus, whether it's at home or at school, for our loved ones with complex needs, because reading and writing and communication opens up the whole world to them. Most importantly, there's so many important aspects of communication, and allowing having them learn how to read and write, because not everything on the device. We want to make sure that we have those availabilities of writing and things like that so that they can communicate more than what's just on their device. And
so I'm going to give you an example. I always have a story. I'll give you, we'll play tag team. So I'm in Texas in this little town called Bremont, and Bremont's got population 900 people, 300 in the school, K through 21, everybody's there. There's no real special ed thing for this girl with Rett syndrome who's like 11 or 12. She's included, and then there's a special ed resource teacher kind of managing it. So you can imagine she didn't have a lot of resources for how to teach her, but she's around a lot of good instruction. So I get there and set up her device. She just got a device, and I whip out the ABC flip book and say, I don't know, maybe we should do some writing. And I model a little writing, and she proceeds to write, am I lazy? Am I lazy? And I said, no, sweetie, you are not lazy. You have Rett syndrome. Do you know you have Rett syndrome? She looks at the no. I said, do you know what apraxia is? She goes, no. I said, apraxia means you have ideas that you cannot make your body do. And she went like this, oh. And I wondered, how long had she been waiting to ask somebody if she was lazy? Now, there was nowhere on her device the word lazy was there. Courtney, I think your computer is doing that bizarre thing where it makes a lot of noise. There, that'll help. Okay, so, and then when you talk, you'll just talk loud. That'd be perfect. So when that happened to me, and I mean, we were all, crying, I wondered how long she waited to ask that question. How appropriate for a teenager, preteen, to be saying, how come I'm different than everybody else? Isn't that what we all said when we were teenagers? Didn't we all want to be exactly like who we thought we should be, or the most popular person, and then we compared ourselves to everybody? Sometimes we just don't outgrow that, but hopefully we have outgrown that. But here was this young girl, and the only way she could do it was by writing. And the only way she learned to write was that she was in classrooms where other people were learning to write. They weren't necessarily teaching her. That's how smart the girls are. She was observing good education. And so in my mind, we need all of our kiddos to have an environment where they're educated, that people are committed to communication and literacy. Because if you can't read, you can't write. If you can't write, you can't be fully communicative. It's just that simple. All right. Go ahead, Courtney.
So we're not saying, and I mean, I'm a 20-year special ed teacher, totally love math and science and all that good stuff. We're not saying that that's not important. But again, if you cannot read, if you cannot write, and you cannot communicate about what you're learning, it doesn't matter what you know. So that first and foremost is always going to be our primary focus. Some other parts of communication and literacy that are so important, of course, main thing, supports social interaction. Being able to communicate. I mean, I've watched with so many of our girls and boys and watched them, and they want to be part of the group. They want to do what their peers are doing. They want to see what their friends are doing. They want to communicate with their friends. So being able to communicate and use their device and use their flip books and things like that, huge importance to that. It supports independence. If our kids have the ability to read and write and communicate, they are much more independent than, and yes, they're still relying on us to take care of them, but they're also able to do some things more independently. It provides, if our kids can read, it provides them an outlet. They can read books on their own and escape to another world. I don't know about you guys, but I love to read. I've loved to read since second grade. I had an amazing second grade teacher who taught me how to read. Well, I had already known how to read, but she used it as a way for me to escape what was going on in my life at that time. And I still, to this day, if I'm in a weird place, I can go read a book and escape to someplace else where it's not so, crazy. And that makes me feel better and makes me calm down. So I can just imagine our girls and boys who are stuck in their bodies and who's stuck, in their own little worlds, being able to be a ballerina, be a scientist, go to space, do whatever by reading a book and using their imagination. So, it's always going to provide escape.
And then we think a little bit of ahead. So I'm blessed that I've got kids that I'm working with now that are like 18 months old, and my oldest is 47 with Rett. And, and I have a 33-year-old. And they are in independent living arrangements, and one of them is beautiful, and the other one is okay. I mean, it's okay. People take really good care of her. She loves it there, and she's happy, so that's good. But if they did not have a way to communicate, or did not have a way, like Marissa, we stormed through all of the, what were those books? The trilogy. With the girl that was like shooting people and, Hunger Games. We ran through those Hunger Game books. I mean, she couldn't get enough of them because she wanted to make sure that girl married the right guy, and that was all there was to it. She had her in her mind who he was supposed she was supposed to marry, and when it went one way and then it went the other and then it went the other, she would get so upset. I said, well, you need to calm down because I can't read with you when you're upset. But she loved those books, and I thought, you know what? How would that adult life be so different if all she was doing was watching Wheel of Fortune on the TV? And I think that why wouldn't we? I mean, I really believe what David Yoder says. There's nobody to anything not to learn to read in some way, shape, or form. And I just keep looking. I'm now teaching 2 girls to read in French, and I don't even speak French. I don't. Thank heavens for Google Translate. But I'm also training mom and dad what to do. We just had a 5-year-old last week. I'm on a remote in Paris at 3:15 in the morning. And they read her favorite book. We worked on the modeling. And I said, okay, ask her what her favorite animal in the book is. And the mom took out the ABC book, and in French, went through all the letters. The little girl went, no, 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 yes. She gets to P and says, yes. Her favorite animal was the penguin. I can say penguin in French. That's one of my words. So there she was. The penguin was her favorite. She picked the P. Nobody at school is teaching her any letters or sounds or anything. That's just from mom working with her extra during COVID. We've all been everybody been closed in, doing a lot of work. And here's this kiddo at 5 starting to give us the beginning letters. So one of the things that I would urge you to do, if you have any spare time, is take the webinar on how to implement these ABC flip books in your house. Like, how do I use these things just around? I have a little girl that's in kindergarten, and I just set up, I actually am running her whole program. The school hired me to run her program because the remote wasn't working for her. So we have a different program. Anyway, her last activity before Thanksgiving break is she's going to make a turkey, and then she has to write who it's to. I don't care if she spells mom correctly. I don't care if she spells dad correctly. I care that she's learning to use this tool and how to write. But last week when she was writing about butterflies, she spelled BFL. BFL for butterfly. I mean, that's kind of amazing for a beginning kindergartner. So, and she's got Rett. It's not like we're talking about kids that are walking, talking, and, doing, what their peers are doing in kindergarten. No, but she's actually writing better. The kindergarten teacher said, she's writing better than some of my kids in kindergarten. I said, I know. Good education makes a big difference. So, okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. I get so excited about writing, and I used to hate writing. I was like, oh, if I have to do writing with kids, I'm going to just die. It was like root canal with no Novocaine. And now it's like my favorite thing to do because you get their idea, not a choice between your ideas, but their idea. And to me, that's like, I don't know what that is. That's like the best thing in the world. To me, I don't know. Anyway,
no,
I'm just that kind of weird.
I agree. Because I've watched, I will be the first one to admit when I first started teaching, of course, 500 years ago, we didn't have very much curriculum or anything for special ed. And so it was kind of pull your own thing. I mean, we still really don't now, but it's a little bit better. But my first year teaching, I had no curriculum in my classroom. But I was of the mindset because of my sister that I was going to teach these children and I was going to teach them everything I possibly could, except for I really had no classes about how to teach our kids. It was behavior and things like that. We didn't really learn how to actually teach our kids. And so it was me trying to figure out what to do. And I'll admit, I was the one who, I was a teacher who thought I was doing so awesome because I was giving my kids choices of pre-made sentences parts for them to put together. And then as I, grew as a teacher and learned and went to Susan's training and everything else like that, I learned about writing it. And now I'm working with some kids who I actually had back in elementary school who are now teenagers. And watching them from when I was with them then to now, we just finished reading a Jason Reynolds book called Long Way Down. And it's all written in verse and it's all poetry. And my boys wrote such amazing sentences using the flip books about this book and what they felt about it. And it's so cool to see their thoughts, not what I think, but what they think about the books that we're reading and the activities we're doing. So go ahead.
So that's the grace, I think, that we give teachers. So there are some I will admit that I'd like to strangle, like the one who said, well, we can't model in our classroom. That will interrupt my instruction. Oh, really? Well, I think that's kind of pathetic. So she's not in that classroom anymore because that was just downright rude. But the idea that teachers really aren't trained to work with our kids, they're just not. It's not their fault. It's the fault of the university systems that are thinking they're just cranking out teachers that are going to work with children with little learning disabilities or kids with autism. And as Courtney always says, which is so smart, things that we do with our kids with Rett do work for kids with autism, but the things they do for kids with autism don't work for our kids with Rett because they do a lot of demand. Show me this, look at this, point to this, do this. It's this whole behavioral perspective that I think is really harmful to our kids because they do get stuck and then somebody's telling them to do it again and again and then they get stucker and stucker. And then after a while, they just kind of say, forget it. I'm not going to have anything to do with you. So I think one of the things that, the reason I even started Rett University was I wanted to get the burden off of parents so we could train teachers so that parents didn't have to be the ones always knocking on the door saying, Susan Orwell said, my kid can learn how to read and write. And now they're like, well, how do we do it? Well, now you don't have an excuse because there's courses up there teaching you. We just have to get people who are willing. Now it's the willing part. I don't know, how many of you can raise your hand. You don't have to say a word. You're such a quiet group. How many of you have teachers that are willing to learn? Raise your hand. Yeah, Mari, you don't. Okay, I don't know. I've seen your teacher now.
I thought I did.
I think your teacher is. I think your administration is like that. Right.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing.
It is an interesting thing, but a lot of you don't. And I think that the problem with that is how do we kind of bring them along? Do you know what I'm saying? How do you bring them along? How do you help them?
I'm screening.
Pardon?
Is it kicking and screaming?
Yeah, maybe. Kicking and screaming. I heard you. Now I got it. So it's really interesting. I'm in this school in Philadelphia, and COVID has done some very good things, because to get me to go someplace for a length of time with airfare and hotel or staying with the family, and the cost of that can be prohibitive for families and for schools. But I can Zoom into school. I can remote into a kid's device. I'm doing a training every other week with this group that's got one of my kindergartners, and they're like learn-it-alls. They are so excited. And I say to them every week, okay, what is it you want to learn to do? They tell me, I do it with the kiddo. They try it for a week or two, then we come back to the table. And I'm telling you that they are thrilled. The teacher said to me, the special ed teacher said to me, she's included in regular kindergarten in the morning, has special ed kindergarten in the afternoon. The teacher said to me, you would not believe how smart she is. Do you know that she did all of her making words for me? And I went, yeah, I do know how smart she is, but I'm just so glad you do, because that's what I want to see a teacher get a hold of, is how our kids, when you give them things that are a little challenging, not the same old, can you identify your colors and your shapes and point to this and point to that junk, but you actually stimulate them with a book and doing some reading. I've set up books on the Toby where they look and they light up and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm reading a book, just like every other kid is reading a book. Pretend read, you know, how they put their finger under it and they say a bunch of stuff that has nothing to do with the book. That's what our kids have to do too. But I now have an 8th grader who reads at a 6th grade level, who's now writing an essay that has 5 paragraphs on what her theme was for the book called The Other Side. And her theme was courage, because this black girl and this white girl in a town down in the South where there was a fence running through the town and the whites were on one side and the blacks were on the other, came together to be friends. Wow. How did she get there? She got there because her school got trained, parents got trained, and we've been walking through this now since she was in 2nd grade. And it's not easy. I'm not going to say it's a slam dunk easy, but it's that, how do we get people on board a little at a time to help our kids? So Ashley, how old is your daughter? Oops,
7.
7, okay. And 5, right, Mari?
Little 6.
6. Oh, that's when she just had a birthday.
6.
She just had a birthday. 6. And how old is our little Dolly?
Evie's 10 now. I was going to say Evie's 10.
How about your daughter? How old is your daughter? How old is she?
She. Who are you talking to?
I'm talking to Janae. Janae, how old's your daughter?
Janae is actually, she's our contact up in New York. She works with all the girls up in New York. She's
the contact. She doesn't have a daughter.
Contact person up there for
You're the dance lady.
She's the dance lady.
Okay. You just do this for all the other moms. You are so sweet. You are so sweet. So
She supports my daughter.
Well, you know,
she is
so that's one of the.
We got a meeting tomorrow.
Yeah, so we really tried to get me up there. And just as I was going to be up there is when COVID kind of blew loose and we had to stop. And I think people do want to have a live versus
I'm so glad you didn't come. I was just going to say, I'm so thankful that you didn't come, Susan, because my family was all very sick. We don't know for sure if we had COVID or not, but I'm so glad you didn't come and get infected.
You know what? I was canceling more trips. This has been a miracle experience for me because, 80% of my living is travel, and it was gone like that.
And now you have to stay home.
And now, look at me. I love it. I love doing remotes. The girls are so engaged. The boys are so engaged, and I'm getting more work done around the world than I would have if I had to travel. It's more affordable for people. We'll take an hour of you. We'll learn something instead of having to have you for a day or two. I mean, gosh, who wants me for that long? Hey, anyway, okay. Go ahead, Courtney. I hijacked your list. You want me that long. I know. Up in your neck of the woods. I'll get there.
All right. So just a few things, and then we'll answer any questions. The biggest thing, and I will say this is coming from me who had a sister with Rett syndrome who was older and lived in a group home because, of course, back when she was when she wasn't even diagnosed till she was 21, they didn't have the programs, the availability or anything that they do now. Thank God that they have now. And one of my big things, because I lived it with Christy, I lived the group home life with her. One of the things that I think I always speak very much about learning the communication and the literacy and everything else is having the ability to read and write and communicate allows them to not be a victim. They are less likely to be a victim of bad circumstances if they can communicate because they can tell us what's going on. I knew when Christy
didn't name names.
Yep, they're able to name names. I knew when Christy didn't like people. I knew when people treated my sister badly or talked badly about me or my mom or my family members in front of Christy because she would give them the death stare and she did not like them. And like there was one girl who worked at the home and I said, every time she would come around, Christy would give her the dirtiest look. And I finally, because she was kind of snarky, and I was like, what have you said about me? And she's like, excuse me? I said, what have you said about me? And she's like, I have not spoken about you. I said, you're lying because my sister doesn't like you. I said, and the only people she doesn't like are people who talk about me and my mom. I said, so you have obviously said something about me, which is probably true because I have complained about you and your behavior. So because I walked in and they were watching inappropriate things on the TV in front of my sister and things like that. I said, Christy's letting me know. And they're like, well, how do you know she can't talk? I don't believe you. And I'm like, I know her nonverbal language very well. I've lived with it my whole life. But if she would have had that ability to talk, she would have communicated. She would have been able to tell us. There was another woman at her home who had cerebral palsy, who had a power wheelchair. And she ran over one specific nurse constantly with her wheelchair. And
that's a form of communication.
It was a form of communication. She was this nurse was so rude to her, and I had heard it repeatedly. And Kim didn't have a way of telling people that this nurse was rude to her, so she ran her over with her wheelchair whenever she got a chance. But the problem is, they didn't know that, and so they were putting Kim up to the Human Rights Board for medication for behavior, because that's what they do when they don't know what to do with you. They put you on medication. So I'm like, my mom calls me and she's like, they have Kim up for the Human Rights Board. And I'm like, Kim? Like, Kim's the sweetest girl in the world. She's such a nice woman. And mom's like, yeah, running over this one nurse. And I'm like, oh,
Sorry.
Somebody's laughing. I love that sound. But I do think what we want to think about is what kind of baby steps do you think we can do in your schools to get them to move off the dime? Like what is it that's the sticking point? You know, in some districts, it's because the district has this edict of what curriculum is going to be in a classroom. Mari, that's what we ran into in your district. It's like somebody's making a decision of what's going to be in the classroom, come hell or high water, and they're putting your daughter on something where she has to use a touch screen. I think that's counterindicated in Rett syndrome. I don't know about you, but aren't too many girls that I know that can do a right or wrong thing on a touch screen. But sometimes it's that they just don't know what to do. And it's administrative blockage is what I've found is the minute you get into a teacher to help them, they're like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. It's the kind of this top layer. And it's interesting. I was talking with David Copenhaver, like just this last week. And I was saying how excited I was about this kid who was writing in France. I sent him the video because he's such a big fan of writing. And I said, you know, I just wish that people would all catch this. You know, they can catch the negative things so quickly about our kids. Why can't they catch the positive things? And he says, if you ever get a way to convince people of this stuff, let me know. I'm in the same boat as you. And I thought, this man is the man for teaching literacy and researching literacy in the United States. He's the it. And they're not listening to him. I'm like, oh my gosh, I drop his name all the time, hoping it'll help. I'm thinking maybe not. So I think there is this kind of prejudice against people who don't talk and can't use their hands. And I think that it's up to us sometimes to break through that by I say to parents all the time, when they do something great, take a video and send it to school. Let them see. Let them see what's possible. And really, schools spend a lot of money on training that our teachers go to that have nothing to do with them at all. I can remember being a special ed teacher sitting in, these webinar, these training things going, this does not apply to my children. This is not for the kids I work with. And if I had been in something where somebody was actually teaching me something useful, it would have been, oh, amazing. So, questions? Do you think we should take questions?
Yeah, we've got it's 2 minutes. If anybody has any questions, we can answer. If not, you guys can always email me, Courtney@gp2c.org, and I will share them with Susan and we will answer them back. So does anybody have any questions?
Or comments? Or other things that you'd like to see us talk about?
Yes, if you guys have ideas of what you want us to talk about, we are more than open. We're going to be doing these once a month. You get to see our ugly mugs. I mean.
Yeah. Hey, Janae, you know that we have a goal bank, on Rett U. Okay. And if you need literacy-based goals, I don't know if my literacy-based goals are up there or if they're just in the webinar on literacy.
I
did a short webinar, like an hour. You have them all?
I think I stole some off of Rett U already. So I think there are some there's a couple different ones on there. Or I might have got it when I did the webinar. I did a webinar with you a while back in my hair.
Okay. Yeah. So there's an emergent literacy webinar and it has all emergent literacy goals for all the blocks and then a guided reading, just the short webinars that are like, I think they're an hour. They're like $30. And and the goals are in there too. So if you need those, let me know. Especially if you're heading in. Are you heading into a meeting with Ashley?
Yeah, we have a meeting tomorrow morning.
Right. Good luck.
So we've been working on stuff for all of this year for sure.
And are you all remote at this point? Everybody remote at this point? Except Florida.
We're
brick and mortar.
We're open.
You guys
all open.
Florida's like, come on in, give everybody COVID. It's all good.
You're just trying to fill up your hospitals as fast as you can. What the heck? Who needs to worry about dying? Yeah, right.
Hey, we're okay. We're all right.
You all had it.
We're actually fine. We're fine. We're in an area. It's not really bad.
Yeah.
You're not because you're in the Panhandle. It's not so bad
It's
there.
down here in
No,
Tampa.
they've just
where
been
I
getting
am.
pummeled with rain.
Yeah, you're just having a hurricane. We have the aftermath.
She's just dealing with hurricane stuff.
Yeah, just that stuff. Yeah.
I mean, that's normal.
What are you running into? Do you mind telling me what you're running into in terms of your school district you're dealing with?
Me?
No.
Yeah, Ashley or Janae.
Janae.
Oh, Candace, I know what you're doing.
Oh, no, there's more now.
Oh, no.
We have a unique situation because Ashley's daughter, Tia, has retained quite a bit of fine motor skills. She's grown in her verbal skills over the last few years, which are all lovely, wonderful things. But the downside of that, we're celebrating and then at the same time struggling because to the school staff and the administrator, she presents, perhaps as somebody who's autistic. And so that's how they're kind of approaching her. And they're requiring, even though her IEP says, she can use total communication, they're requiring a time or not using that multi-pronged approach with her. And I honestly think they really have no clue how to differentiate the materials to suit her her needs, or that there's even a need for that. So I've been taking some of your videos that I stock on YouTube and different places, because for me, I'm a visual learner. I'm stock.
That's okay.
I'm a visual learner, and I find the videos when you're actually working with kiddos to be the most informative because of the mistakes that get made. And I love the mistake part because then you actually see what real communication looks like. It's not just, oh, here's the choices and pick this.
Right.
But, there's miscommunication. There needs to be a clarification. And they really don't understand the apraxia for all kids with Rett syndrome, but Tia in particular, that it is beyond just her verbalizations. So
Right.
one of the way her apraxia presents is she'll wander away, or she'll put things in her mouth or something like that. They see those as behaviors. They see those as her being defiant, those types of things. So I think in general, it's just
I'm so sorry.
they
Ashley.
they don't get
Rett.
Go ahead, Ashley. You can talk about your own kids.
That should be our new motto. You have to get Rett.
You have to get Rett.
Not get it, but get it.
Ashley,
in
were
your
you
head.
in our communication partners? Were you the one who was making at the communication partners? Was it you that was talking about your daughter?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. Remember, I wrote.
So glad.
Yes. Okay.
So glad you're connected. I'm so glad.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Well, her teacher said her diagnosis doesn't matter, and that she has to get to know a child. And so I told administration, well, when the teacher told me that, I thought to myself, well, when you're in a relationship with somebody, how long does it take for you to get to know the child? And both of my children, I have one also with autism, they're going to be different at the beginning of the year than they are at the end of the year, especially Tia, because she takes like the honeymoon phase and then she sees what she can get away with. And so then administration said that they would take part in some Rett syndrome training, and they would do a train the trainer. They were invited to the last webinar and this one, and nobody's on from the school. So they don't care.
it's so frustrating because we're doing this for free. Do you know what I'm saying? They don't even have to pay money. They just have to show up. And we're not teaching it heavy here. We're just talking about what we need to do to build more literacy and how worthwhile it is, and stories about parents that are successful and boys that are successful to give inspiration. And yet, I don't know. I don't know. It's the part of me that goes, I love being a teacher. I am a teacher from my core. I can stop a group of kids with my voice to the grocery store like that because I got a teacher voice. It's just inborn. But to not want to know more, that's the part that gets me. To not want to be better at what you do. I mean, I'm learning all the time. I've been doing this for 45 years. I've been teaching people around the world about what I do, and I still learn. And if I don't, somebody shoot me. Put me down, because that's not right. It's not right.
I know for me personally, having spent, the last 20 years, 15 of that was spent working with my patient who had Rett syndrome, who passed away. And I was in school with her. I went, I was her one-on-one nurse / aide / communication partner, the whole thing. So I went to every therapy all the way around. And of course, I knew that she was capable of doing things that the education she had was not appropriate in any way, shape, or form. And her mom had to fight hard for that. So it is frustrating to see that it's kind of, 20 years later, the same thing that we're up against. We've made steps forward, but I think it's really about finding the few people who look beyond. I always say when I first met Kim, just the fact that I got down on my knees so she could be eye level with me and so I could see her face. Little things like that go a long way in building a relationship. Even if it's one or two, people who believe in this child can make a huge difference for them and for the attitude of the staff overall.
Absolutely. It is all about relationships. I absolutely agree. And we have to say goodnight. If you have any ideas about other things you would like us to talk about, or to maybe even dig deeper into, like maybe what would you do? I don't know. It's anything. We're trying to be of service to our parents because we realize that not everybody has a Janae standing in their corner, which is a good thing to have a Janae standing in your corner. But if there's anything we can do to be of help, boy, just let us know.
Please, that's what we're here for.
Homeschool.
Homeschool. I'm running a couple of homeschool programs myself.
How to set up homeschool, because I really feel like on some level I'm going in that direction.
Candace,
Okay.
email me.
Let us.
Yeah.
I can also homeschool mom.
Yeah, I have a couple of homeschool families that I set up their programs for.
Me too.
because
I haven't.
that's
I
why
have
they
an
learn.
IEP tomorrow.
I have a girl who's in 5th grade reading at a 4th grade level, all homeschooled. She homeschools all 5 kids, but she needed a consult to what to do with Brielle. You might have seen the mom just post it. She posted her writing on Facebook.
Yeah, I saw that.
I saw that. That was beautiful.
She's doing a great job. She really is. And I think that it takes a certain kind of person to do homeschooling. I mean, you got to be really disciplined, but at the same time, if they're not going to teach them, I mean, it's like,
What's the point of her going?
Yeah, you put them in part of the day for social. You pull them out the rest of the day so they can actually get some academics. I mean,
Well, and Candace, as you and I have talked,
Yeah,
if
Evie's
they're
not
talking,
getting an academic.
they're not supporting her Toby, and they're, I think, discouraging her from using her Toby. So we don't need that. We need her. Yeah.
Just by their actions, not by how they perceive it and the things they say about it when she's trying to work with it. And
Right.
I mean, and it's funny because I'm getting the feedback from the nurse because she doesn't get paid by the school. She gets paid by my insurance. So
right.
she's our employee.
Okay, so let's put that on our list. Talk about homeschooling, what that would look like. And we will see you, hopefully the next month. And if you
Thanks
need
for
anything,
showing
don't
up.
hesitate.
Yep.
Let us know how your meeting goes tomorrow. We'll be all
Yes.
curious. All right? Okay. Bye,
Bye,
Mari.
guys. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye, Mari. Bye, Ashley. Bye, Janae. Bye,
Bye.
Courtney. Bye,
Bye.
Susan.
Bye, Ashley. Bye, Janine.